Hello and welcome into the Hockey Card Haven podcast with Mike DeStefano and Anthony Santini. We're here to dive deep into the world of hockey card collecting, flipping, and investing. What's going on, Anthony? How you feeling today?
What's going on, man? After a massive show yesterday, I'm a little tired. Hard day at work. I can't wait to get into that. Can't wait to get into the final four of the NHL playoffs. Dude, I'm zonked right now, but I'm ready for this pod. And the hobby's in a good spot, so I can't wait to talk about that after yesterday's show.
Absolutely. We were at the show in Hamilton, the Collecticon show, lots of foot traffic, which you always love to see, especially on a long weekend. Lots of people coming out to support the hobby. So we'll definitely talk about that. We'll show our pickups at some point later on in the show. We're going to play some buy, sell, hold today too. It's a fun little game. I've got 5 players on the market, and I'm curious to see if you think that they're worth buying, selling, or holding. We'll go through all of those players. And there's a really interesting thing that's developing in the States right now. GameStop is entering the sports card and TCG market. And I'm curious what you think that means for the hobby and its viability going forward. So we'll get into all of that and more. But let's start on the ice here, Anthony, because the Final Four is set in the NHL playoffs, which means lots of players are now out of the market. But that means that there are 4 teams locked and loaded who are ready to compete for a conference championship and hopefully sail on to an NHL or sail on to a Stanley Cup championship. But what this means for the hobby is, this is a weird transition point where you go from there being a lot of players that people are hyped on, trying to buy up and take for the long run. And all of a sudden it's been cut in half, right? Now there's really only like 4 teams that you can really expect to see, growth in their markets, where a lot of guys start to kind of fall off once they get eliminated. But from a hockey perspective, when you look at these 2 matchups, Anthony, we'll get to the card part of it in a second. The Rangers versus the Panthers in the East, Edmonton versus Dallas in the West. Like, what are your overall thoughts about these matchups? And then you can kind of tackle on what you think this means for the hobby. Are these matchups good for the hobby?
I mean, I think a Canadian team still being alive is a good spot for the hobby, right? Obviously, we're going to get that no matter what. Vancouver goes down last night in Game 7. I wasn't even able to watch the third period. I was so rattled. We had a beer league game last night at 10:45, which is the definition of prime time for a game that started at I think 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock.
9 or 8, yeah.
So I missed the third period. We were kind of watching on the bench from at Canland, Oakville, Iceland, from up top, and we couldn't really see. And then all I saw was the handshakes, and I ran to the timekeeper. I was like, dude, what is the score of the game? He's like, oh, the Oilers won 3-2. I was like, no, man.
Yeah.
I really wanted the Canucks to win. I know you wanted them to win. That was your team growing up. But we have a team, a Canadian team in the conference finals in McDavid, who is one of the hobby's biggest players and the hobby's sweetheart, if you want to call him that. So for me, I think that's a big positive for the hobby to see one of the hobby's biggest and brightest rookie cards on display and him having a chance to win a Stanley Cup. Now, I don't know if he's going to be able to do it playing a really good team in Dallas. I mean, I was looking on really face off today, and if you go pull up the lineup that Dallas is putting on the ice, it's just ridiculous. Like that third line could be a competitive second line on almost any team in the East. Like Dallas is the definition of a contender, and I think they're a clear-cut favorite to win the Stanley Cup. But for me, seeing how well all their players like Robertson, Ottinger, even Wyatt Johnson exclusively have done, in the past week and a half, 2 weeks with their prices, and also Canadian markets still being in the playoffs, everything points to positives right now for the hobby and for the NHL playoffs.
Yeah, 100%. I think you look at the teams that are still in it. Specifically, you look at New York, big time original 6 market in the States. They're still kicking around. And then obviously Edmonton with Connor McDavid. So for the market, it's really, really good, right? And obviously with McDavid still around, you love to see it, a Canadian team in Edmonton. And I think that these are just 2 really even series. Like, I think they're going to be just awesome series. I'm with you where I do think Dallas ultimately pulls through over Edmonton. I am one of the few apparently who think the Rangers will pull through over Florida. Florida actually favored on many of the sports books, and a lot of pundits are taking Florida right now. I don't know where you sit on that one, but I look at the Rangers and I'm like, that team is just like Dallas. They're so stacked, like all the way through the lineup. Blake Wheeler's coming back. That'll be a nice boost to their fourth line. Igor Shesterkin is playing out of his mind right now. They've got unbelievable depth on the blue line. So I think the Rangers are going to give Florida a lot of heck out there. So I'm excited just from a hockey watching perspective, but I am curious. I'm going to throw something at you, Anthony. I didn't cue you up on this because I want to know, how well do you know the Young Guns market? So can you guess who's been the biggest growth on each of the 4 teams since the start of the season? Since the start of the season and through the playoffs, who's seen the most growth through the playoffs for each team? We could start with arguably the easiest one in Dallas. Who do you think that's been?
I'm going to say Wyatt Johnston right off the top of my head. Like, I think at the beginning of the season, he started as a $10 to $25 young gun, bouncing around in that range based off condition. And now we've seen his young gun go to almost $70. I know people were having $60 stickers at the show yesterday. Yeah. So Wyatt Johnston, a clear-cut answer for me.
And our boy has the highest sale on a PSA 10, Wyatt Johnston, the other night. Our boy Eric cashing in $319 for a PSA 10, which is up 71% since the start of the season. It's absolutely mind-blowing what Wyatt Johnston's market has been up to throughout the playoffs. All right, the Edmonton Oilers, the team that they're facing. Who do you think in Edmonton has the biggest jump in their market since the start of the season?
I want to go with Stuart Skinner, just because at the start of the season he was a little bit lower, but he's always been that $10 guy, which I feel like he shouldn't be. I don't know what his PSA 10s are doing right now. I'm going to assume just slightly under $100, but my answer for Edmonton has to be Bouchard. And we were just having this conversation, so maybe you hinted at it a little bit because you did say you did research, but Bouchard going for around, I think, 140 to 180 in his young guns.
Yeah, the highest sale that I've seen was 160 Canadian, 160. Yeah. And it was as low as $60 earlier in the season. So like that's $100 growth. Like that's unbelievable. From 60 to 160. Like that's a 77% increase over the course of the season. The guy's got 20 points. He's the first player in NHL history, first defenseman, in NHL history to record 20 points through 2 playoff series. Bobby Orr didn't do it. Cale Makar hasn't done it. Like Paul Coffey didn't do it. Evan Bouchard is the first in history to rack up 20 points through 2 rounds of the NHL playoffs. It is unbelievable what this guy's done. I think he's only played 13 games because LA didn't go 6. LA didn't go 7. They went 5 or 6 games in LA.
I think they went to game 5. I think it was Oilers in 5. I don't think it went to 6.
Either way, so we're looking at either 12 or 13 games max. He's got 20 points. The Boosh Bomb is for real. So yes, he's up 77% since the start of the season. The Florida Panthers. Who do you think has the biggest growth in their market since the start of the NHL season?
I want to say Tkachuk. I don't think that's the answer because I know he probably started the season higher than he is right now, considering how well he was doing in the playoffs and how well his market grew when it was this time just a year ago. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, it's not Sam Reinhart because it feels like his cards haven't even grown. I'm going to say Barkov. Has Barkov got the recognition after winning the Selke? Is this the recognition time for Barkov?
Should have went with your gut, buddy. Should have went with your gut. Chucky. Matthew Tkachuk up 42% since the start of the playoffs. His last sale was $210 in a PSA 10 for Matthew Tkachuk. So, and this is a card that I bought at the Expo, I think, for $140. So that was, like midway through round 1, and it's already increased dramatically since then. So, like, Matt Tkachuk is a guy who certainly is trending upward. And if they continue to go on a run, here's the thing though, we've seen this before where a player like Matt Tkachuk's market specifically last year, same thing happened. It grew massively in the playoffs and then it cratered quick. So this is a card that we're going to play buy, sell, hold in a minute, looking at some specific players, but Matt Tkachuk for me is one of those guys that I think I'm selling at that price at over $200 because I've seen the drop, and it happens quick with guys from the Panthers. It's just not a hot market, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Like, I like how you brought up last year's playoffs too, because Matthew Tkachuk, who didn't play, I don't think he played game 4 and onwards because he was injured.
Yeah.
He was battling with the injury, right? Hurt his market because they didn't really have that momentum. Obviously, they win the Eastern Conference, go to the Stanley Cup Finals in the first time in what feels like forever for the Florida Panthers, led behind Matthew Tkachuk in what was just an insane offseason for him. But I'm pleasantly surprised to see that his market has done well because, like I said, I didn't think that it grew that much compared to the start of the season, but I wasn't really doing my homework on him. That's why we'll get into it later. I know we want to talk about him, but I feel like the Panthers could take the Rangers to Game 7. I don't know. The Rangers are so good, and them being underdogs is ridiculous considering they were underdogs to Carolina. When I was looking at the books, every single game, it said Carolina was favored. And what happened those first 3 games? The Rangers grabbed everything, every single one.
Yep. Speaking of the Rangers, who's leading the charge for the Rangers in terms of growth since the start of the season?
I think the answer has to be Lafreniere, for sure. Considering how well he's been playing this offseason, leading from midseason and onward, it has to be him, right?
This one surprised me. You're incorrect.
No.
Laffy has seen a crazy jump in his market, obviously, since the beginning of the season. We'll get to it a little later, but since January 1st, Laffy's market is up 57%. But since the start of the season, so we're thinking back in September, Chris Kreider.
Oh, I have the answer. Oh, no, I would have got it wrong again. Thank God. I was literally going to say Artemi Panarin because he went from like 80 to like 140, 160.
He's still cheap. It makes no sense why. Like, his cards are always so dirt cheap. It doesn't make any sense to me. But Chris Kreider's up a 77%. Just throw it a guess what you think his last PSA 10 sale was for. I guarantee you're going to be way wrong.
That's crazy because I've always found him underrated. I'm gonna say like $90, right?
Guy, throw on another $309 onto that, pal.
What?
His last sale, $399, and that was, to be fair, after the hat trick to propel them into the conference final. But it's such a low pop. Pop 144. Pop 144 for Chris Kreider. So the supply is super, super low. So if you want one, you're going to have to pay up for it. And that's why pop reports are important to consider when you're buying stuff like this, right? Because at the end of the day, supply and demand is always what's going to drive economics and drive markets like this. So when high demand goes for a guy who scores a natural hat trick in a series clinching game in New York City, yeah, people are going to be wanting that card and paying up for it.
I can't believe how wrong that was to say $90. I'm looking at comps right now.
$399, and like it's not even an anomaly. Like there's a few that are in that range.
I have it pulled up right now, and I'm actually in shock. There's like 10 to 15 comps over $300 for Kreider.
Yeah,
like from $300 all the way to like there was a $510 comp 4 days ago.
I was shocked, dude. I was shocked.
That's ridiculous.
So, if you're now, the reason for it, he comes out of the 2012-13 Young Guns. That was a short printed set because that was the year that they had the lockout. They played the half year. So it wasn't a full Series 1, Series 2 set. So it's a short printed Young Gun set in general. And that's the reason for the low pop. And not a lot of people bought because at the time, there really wasn't many good rookies because none of the draft picks were in those because they held and they did the double in 2013-14 because, well, they couldn't. They didn't play. Yakupov didn't play a game after being drafted in 2012. Morgan Rielly didn't play a game after being drafted in 2012. So all those guys got pushed. And, Chris Kreider turned out to be the cream of the crop in that 12-13. Mark Stone's also in that 12-13 Young Guns class. That one threw me for a loop. I knew the whole reason why I wanted to do this segment with you is because I knew that one in particular was going to stump you, and you were going to be flabbergasted by it. Mission accomplished, I would say.
No, I like how you left the Rangers for the end, and I actually pulled up the list of Young Guns from this year and some notable ones that I do notice. And I even remembered because I used to PC Torrey Krug when I first got into the hobby, a guy that I loved growing up watching. But from what I see, Torrey Krug, Mark Stone, Tyson Berry, some names that jump off the page for me. Brendan Dillon, sorry, they have everything backwards. Brendan Dillon, Winnipeg Jet, a guy who I find underrated, a good defenseman, but we'll never get that hobby love. So those are some names. Obviously, Chris Kreider, Jakob Silverberg, low-key a legend to me. Watching him play hockey growing up. I mean,
I think Meek is Meek in that class too, or is he the year?
No, Zibanejad is in.
Might be 11-12.
I think he's 13-14. I just sold his young ones yesterday.
13-14. Definitely not 13-14. He might be 11-12 though.
I'm going to get you that answer right now. And the answer is 11-12. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I know what they look like the design. And I know that he's not 13-14. 13-14 has the orange and silver young guns.
I always try and go off of like who else was in that year. Let's see. Do you think you'd be able to name someone else in that Zibanejad year?
Zibanejad. It's a Zibanejad year.
Yeah, I could give you a hint if you want.
Jake Gardner.
Yeah. There's a Winnipeg Jet.
Blake Wheeler.
I don't think Wheeler.
Mark Scheifele.
Wheeler was in that like years before where he was wearing a Bruins jersey.
Oh yeah, he's a Bruin.
Yeah, that's how I do the same thing like you do. I don't know the year, but I know like I have the photo in my head. I'm sure anyone listening.
Duchesne, Ryan O'Reilly, Nazem Kadri year? Is it that year?
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's 07-08. I think is that year. Maybe 08-09. Victor Hedman's in that year as well. I know because I opened up a box back in the day and I got a Hedman and a Duchesne in the same box, and I thought I was a boss. And Hedman's, still I think a $60-ish card, $50 to $60 card. Duchesne not so much, but could become a Stanley Cup champion in the next little bit. So those are the guys that are like really have skyrocketed over the course of the playoffs. But there still are some guys who, we believe, Anthony and I believe, have room for growth. So let's each lay down one more player that we believe still hasn't quite peaked yet, that you can still buy, and hopefully if they can win the series or play well throughout the series, you can make a quick flip and try and move that card and make some profit. So who's a player that you've targeted for that exercise?
So I know we just talked about him and I want to get into it. And this is I'm going to come at an angle right now that you might not anticipate, but it's a little bit of an audible. And like you said, if they could win a series, but I'm actually thinking about that quick flip and a team that could grab some games early on and see their market increase, because notoriously I've been buying throughout the playoffs, buying throughout the conference finals, waiting and anticipating for the Stanley Cup finals to come around and for that player to get a shot to lift the cup. And I will never forget picking up with Eric a Nathan MacKinnon's Young Gun PSA 10 for $1,100. They were comping for $1,300 at the time. They were in the Western Conference Finals when I picked it up, thought I got a steal. They went on to the Stanley Cup Finals and to win it, but the price just continued to drop. And it didn't make sense until I realized hype. The word is hype, and hype drives the market, and that's exactly what I think is going to happen with Matthew Tkachuk and the Florida Panthers. Like we said, ultimately the Rangers are going to win this series. I think we both know that. We're not going to be surprised by it when it happens.
I believe they will. Like if I had, gun to my head, pick a winner, I feel stronger about the Rangers, but I feel way stronger about Dallas than I do the Rangers. Like I think that's almost a coin flip series. Like I'm 52-48 New York over Florida.
Yeah, but, I mean, like you said, I'm fully on your side for Dallas over Edmonton. Right now I have Dallas in 5 and I have Rangers in 7. I just think that Tkachuk's value will increase if they could go up 2-0. And I don't even think they have home ice either. So for me, I got my eyes on Matthew Tkachuk. I'm going to see if I could pick up some Tkachuk Young Guns in Montreal this weekend, actually, which I'm super excited for. And I'll see if they could get 2 games up on them. Maybe I can make a little bit of profit, but if they don't, I'll definitely find myself in the dumpster.
Oh, man. I'm powering through it today. I got a little head cold, a cough. I'm trying to power through without coughing as much. I let one go there, so I apologize to all the listeners. I'm doing my best here. mine's gonna surprise you, and
Okay.
it's really just based on the market itself. It's Connor McDavid. I think is still a buy, and again, I think that Dallas is still going to win the series, but I think Connor McDavid is going to awaken. He has not yet really, like, he had that 5-goal game or 5-point game right at the start of the playoffs, but since then, I wouldn't say he's necessarily taken over a series. There's an opportunity for him to take over the series. But you look at where his market is since the start of the playoffs, and you'd be surprised. They've made it all the way to the Stanley Cup Conference Final, the conference final, and his market's down 14% since the start of the playoffs. I can't fathom why it's down. And to me, I feel like when the market zigs, you should zag. And McDavid, to me, feels like, so the last sale went for $3,500, down from the top sale of about $4,099, which was made on May 2nd. But I've seen them stickered at about $3,000 at shows yesterday, PSA 10s. I think that's a worthy buy because all you need out of McDavid is one game, 2 goals, 2 helpers, 4 points, and all of a sudden, I think you see a $200-$300 increase on that Young Guns, and you could easily make that, make that $200-$300 just by doing a quick flip. Like, it's a little bit more of an investment, obviously, at $3,000, but even if it goes up $300, like, it's 10%. That's a quick 10% value, right? That profit that you can try and make that in 3 or 4 days. So McDavid is actually someone who I think who's down 14% against the start of the playoffs might still have some value left in him. What do you think of that?
Yeah. I like what you just said there. Like, he might have some value left in him because it feels like since the start of the playoffs, his prices haven't reflected, how he's been playing, who he is, and how far they've come, because they've exceeded expectations considering the first 10 games of the season. I hate to talk about the regular season, but if we're going to go back all the way back,
first 20 games of the season was brutal.
But dude, think about it, right? We're going to go back, put yourselves in your shoes. November 1st, call it. We're looking at Connor McDavid's PSA 10 sitting at $3,000, what, $950 to $1,000 for a raw. Look at it today.
PSA 10, I think, is less than that. I could show you exactly what it was going for back then. Keep talking, I'll find it.
Yeah, take a look. I mean, it's borderline the exact same price that it used to be. So there hasn't been a lot of movement for McDavid this season in general. So I'll see if he can have that game where he really blows up in a positive way, for 5 points, 3 points on the power play, a goal, in that 4-1 game that they really need and upset the Stars maybe on home ice. I think all it will take is that one night where people are watching the game, they're sitting on eBay, they want to pick a McDavid Young Gun, and they're like, oh my God, a Canadian team finally has a shot to win a Stanley Cup, the first time in, I think, 30 years, and McDavid is going to lead that charge, and what, his price is the exact same it was almost 6 months ago? Ridiculous.
What's the word we used? Actually, last sale, 3,051. Sorry, 3,051 was the last sale on a McDavid PSA 10. So about $3,000, which is down about $1,000 from May 2nd. Like, I think that it's worth picking up. Now, what was the date we said? November 1st?
No, call it November 1st. If we're going to say, what, 20 games in, 10, 15,
yeah, I'm just going to take a look and see where we were at, maybe back on November 1st, and see where things were when the team was not doing very well at all.
Yeah, you do your thing. I mean, for me personally, I know we were going to do pickups and talk about it later, but I picked up a McDavid Young Guns Raw yesterday, just slightly under $1,000.
Surprisingly, November 1st, there's a sale for $3,400. So when the team was in the dumps, it sold for more than it is right now. So, like, why wouldn't you pick them up at $3,000 if that's what it costs to acquire one? That's what it cost when the team sucked. Now they're 4 wins away from a Stanley Cup final. You're not going to take that chance. I think it's worth a gamble, because worst case scenario, that's a liquid card at $3,000 even through the summer.
Dude, seriously, like, it's McDavid. He's the best player in the world. I think everyone could accept that. It's McDavid versus everyone else in the NHL. And if you're going to bring up a conversation to say otherwise, look, McKinnon's great, Kucherov's great, Matthews is great, Cale Makar is great. If you want to talk goalies, Vasilevsky, Shesterkin, all these guys are great players at their position on their team. but it's McDavid versus everyone else in the NHL. He will always be superior for the next 5, 10, 15 years. I don't care. He's the best player in the NHL. It's always going to be like that. There's no reason for his price to stay stagnant through a season where he's playing some of his best hockey and he's taken his team to the conference final with a team, a goaltender, a top 3 defensemen, if we want to call him that. Bouchard right now, he's playing like it. It's absolutely rattling me right now. I'm getting too heated because I've owned 2 Connor McDavid Young Guns PSA 10s, and I tried to get 3,500. I tried to get 4,000, and I ended up moving both for 3,000. So it's almost like a pleasant surprise. Maybe pleasant surprise is a good term for a lack of a better word to use, to see that his prices haven't moved. I mean, I'm happy I sold 6 months ago and they're doing well now. I'd be so mad if this card was a $5,000 card, which it should be.
Yeah, you were able to take that $3,000 and put it elsewhere and grow it, because if you waited till the playoffs thinking that it was going to grow to 4 or 5, it hasn't happened yet, which is also crazy. He's second in the playoffs in points. Like, it's not like he's not performing. He's got 21 points so far through how many games? 21 points in 13 games? Like, what do we do? 21 points in 12 games. Now, he only has 2 goals. And goals matter. So if he starts to score, that is what – because when we look at other players, and this is a good transition. We could transition to buy, sell, hold right after this. A guy who's a massive buy right now for a lot of people, maybe not me, I'll let you know in a sec, is Wyatt Johnston. Because Wyatt Johnston is scoring goals. He's scoring goals, and that, what's the H word we used earlier? Is creating what?
Hype. He's creating that hype.
Right. All you need is a 2-goal night at a Connor McDavid for him to go coast to coast, score an unbelievable goal, and that hype is going to skyrocket that bad boy to $3,500, $4,000 again. That's my prediction. That's my prediction.
I want to agree with your prediction because it's what should happen. I feel like you have the right idea. In this sense, the hobby's just not going to agree. I don't know what the viewers think, but it's almost frustrating.
Let us know below. Like, what do you think is going on with the Connor McDavid market? Like, why haven't we seen an increase? Why is Connor McDavid down 14% since the playoffs, despite winning 2 rounds and being second in the league in scoring while doing so? Now just 8 wins away from hoisting a Stanley Cup. Doesn't make sense to be down so much.
It's insane because almost 2 seasons ago when he took his team to go play Colorado in the Western Conference Finals, unfortunately getting swept where Pavel Francouz?
Yeah.
Is that his first name? I think Pavel. But Francouz absolutely mopped the floor with the Oilers, came in out of nowhere, was a star goaltender, held his ground. But we saw McDavid's price increase. I'm going to say that in the next 2-3 weeks, no matter if they win this series, we won't see that increase because the hype going into the Stanley Cup Finals will always outbeat when they're actually in it. But not to say that that's what should happen. I just think that is what's going to happen, and that's why I'm so frustrated right now because I don't think that's what should happen. Connor McDavid in a Young Guns PSA 10 right here, PSA 10 should be a $5,000 card. That's exactly what it should be, $5,000.
It was during the pandemic.
A lot of things. A lot. I could pull up here. See this card we got? What's this? Nice.
Who's that was fire. Phil Kessel.
I guess I probably could have put this in a top loader, post on eBay for $5 plus shipping, and I think someone probably would have ran to it. Not even ran. They would have sprinted to go buy this card. So that's what the pandemic was like.
During the summer, we got to look back at some sales because there's some outrageous. I picked up a Dominic Kubalik this weekend for $1 in a dollar bin. Dominic Kubalik was an $80 Young Gun at one point because he had like a 4-point night when they returned to the playoffs and it went insane. And now it can be found for $1 or $2. It's wild, insane. All right, let's get to some buy, sell, and hold here, Anthony. I want to play this game. It's quite it's a fun game here. So I've got 5 players essentially that I've got here, and I want you to tell me if you're buying, selling, or holding. I'm going to tell you what their market is right now, what their last comp was, the last sale. Somebody asked before, by the way, what is comp? For those who are kind of just new and learning and just following along, a comp is literally just Why am I blanking? What's the
A comp is basically a comparable price for an
comparable?
item
Yes.
of a
That was the word I was
collectible.
looking for. I was like, what is the big word?
Yeah,
Comparable.
it's
There we
basically just like a short form. So if you pull up like any card and you say what's the comp, it's pretty much mean what's the
comparable price.
comparable price to this item
Yeah,
online.
yeah. What is that selling for? So I'm going to tell you that, and you're going to tell me if it's a buy at that price, a sell, or if you're going to hold and maybe hope that it's that it increases.
Let's
So
do it.
let's pull it up. All right. So we'll start with Laffy. Okay. We'll start with Alexis Lafreniere. His PSA 10 last sold for $210. Raw card last sold for $50. Is that a buy, sell, or a hold for you, Alexis Lafreniere?
I'm gonna say the Laffy, and it's weird because his price has always been cheap considering how hyped he was.
Not on release day.
I
Remember what
mean,
was going for back in the day? Laffy
I'll
and Zegras and
man,
Caulfield back then. Ooh, baby.
release day price. I feel like release day prices just need to have like an asterisk on it. Like if you search up any comp on Card Ladder, anything within like a month of release day should just have like a little asterisk, and even just put like hype in brackets or something like that, just to like let the viewer know, like, okay, this price is absolutely absurd. To tell a quick story about my first time pulling a Lafreniere Young Guns, I was sleeping at my grandfather's house, spent a weekend there when my parents went on vacation. We were hanging out. He said, let's go get ice cream. And it sounds like I'm like 14 years old, but I was in first year of university and I love going for ice cream. So I took him to ice cream. He's 90 years old. Give me a break. Went to go get some ice cream, went to Walmart. He bought me a pack of hockey cards because I was saying, look, I just got into collecting a little bit more after COVID and stuff. I want to buy a pack of cards. Brought it back to the house. He fell asleep on the couch. I went upstairs. I was chilling, opened up a pack, got the Lafreniere Young Guns, instantly checked the comp, $1,000 to the raw. $1,000. It was probably within like a week, 2 weeks of release day. But anyways, that's my story on Lafreniere. I know we want to push through this. So Lafreniere, I'm gonna say is a buy. I still think he's cheap considering, the trajectory that he's on. I don't know if the Rangers is going to be his home in 5 years, considering how deep that lineup is. But at 20, I think he's 21, 22 years old right now. He has a lot to prove, and he's playing like it too right now. His price is still cheap, I think, considering how well he can perform and grow. So right now, I'll keep buying Lafreniere. I don't mind it.
I think I'm a hold. I think I'm a hold on Laffy. I don't know if I'm willing to spend up for it just because you look at since January 1st, he's played a lot better in the new year, obviously. He's up 57%. Like, I don't know if I want to be buying a card that's up 57%, in the last few months here. I'd be willing to hold and see if it goes up a little bit. But I think I'm a hold on Laffy. Go ahead.
I was just going to end up before you transition and say I definitely agree, but I still feel like he's cheap. But like you said, it's tough to really put a bunch of money out on a card where you already missed the boat in a sense.
Right. Speaking of Wyatt Johnston, last PSA 10 sale, $305. There was a $319 sale that we know about, but the last sale was $305. So we're sitting at about a $300 price tag for PSA 10, which is up 71% in the last 30 days, which breaks my heart because I sold the PSA 10 right before the playoffs for $160, and now it's worth double that. So that is unfortunate. I do still have a canvas, which is still probably only worth half the amount of the regular Young Guns PSA 10. But I am selling Wyatt Johnston. Like I think $300 is an absurd price to pay for this guy. I just like he's good. Don't get me wrong, but like $300 good. I don't know. Like realistically, I think that this is the hype train right now. He scored a couple of big goals early in the series against the Colorado Avalanche. He scored some big goals at the end of the series against the Vegas Golden Knights, but he kind of fell off towards the end of the series. Like he didn't score a whole lot in the final couple of games against Colorado. Not that he didn't play well. It just, the goals weren't coming. And I think Wyatt Johnston, I think he's like probably peaking at this point in the 300 range. So I think he's a sell candidate for me.
Yeah, he didn't get any goals in the last 2 games of the series. This is easily like red flashing lights saying sell, sell, sell. The only positive I could say right now about his PSA 10 is it's a tough card to grade. Like that year is notoriously known. We've seen it Slavkovsky.
Yeah, I think it's only like 34% gem rate, so it's not. Yeah, it's not a very high pop. I'll look it up while you're talking.
Yeah, take a look. I mean, even Slavkovsky from that year too, definitely hard to grade. So if you're looking for Wyatt Johnston raw young guns, make sure you take that extra step to look at the condition of it, because you might pick one up at a card show for $50 and it's comping at 70, but that condition might be a PSA 8 condition. Like you might want to double
new sale. There's a new sale since I did the there's a new high sale of $340.
Oh,
so maybe it should have been a buy at 300. Maybe we were wrong.
Man, his price is just shooting up right now, and I mean, rightfully so. I don't want to be a hater right now and say, sell, 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 be afraid, don't buy it, because that would do a little bit of, disjustice. Is that the word I'm looking for to the hobby? Because we look at McDavid and we say he's playing well, but his prices won't go up. And then we look at Wyatt Johnston and we say he's playing well, but sell everything. You know what I mean? But if you're looking to collect Wyatt Johnston, just wait on it. In September, his prices will maybe half, I'd say.
Considering like when like at this, like I sold one for $160 like 6 weeks ago.
Seriously,
so, yeah, I got it for that.
Seriously, like we said with Lafreniere, we missed the boat, but with Wyatt Johnston, we missed the cruise. We missed the cruise ship. All right,
it's a 32% gem rate, only 495 PSA 10. So, all things considered, a bit of a low-ish pop and a low gem rate, which is also what drives a little bit higher of a market. Like if this was like a 58% gem rate and there was like 1,000, PSA 10s, this probably is closer to like a $280 card. But because, again, supply and demand, a little bit harder to get, it's more expensive. All right, this is an interesting one. Auston Matthews. I want to get into the Auston Matthews discussion. So his last sale for his PSA 10 Young Guns, $1,194, which is down 22% in the last 30 days. Is Auston Matthews at that price, $1,100, a buy, sell, or hold?
So I'm a big Matthews fan, but I wanted to actually take the time and I wanted to search up his Instagram, because yesterday at the card show, I sold an Auston Matthews Young Guns. So the user was Blades of Cardboard. Shout out you, Tony, if you are listening to the podcast. Came up to me. He did the most.
He was a pod listener? The guy who bought it was a pod listener?
So listen to this. This guy's an absolute beauty. If you're listening, he came up and he pretty much said, hey, would you take $1,000 for that Matthews Young Guns? And I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, it doesn't happen all the time where someone comes up, they make a good offer,
very reasonable offer,
and they say, look, this is what I want to pay. I want to buy it. I want the card. This is my offer. Take it or not. And I said, you know what? Yeah, let's do it. Shook hands, exchanged cash, and said to me, he said something along the lines of, and by the way, I listened to the pod. How was Mexico?
Nice.
I listened to a couple episodes and I really enjoyed it. I said, yeah, like I really appreciate it. Like look forward to making more episodes. And yeah, like the conversations have been good. So Tony, shout out you. I wanted to make sure I got your Instagram and I said this. So if you are listening right now, I appreciate that. But to answer your question, Auston Matthews is a sell for right now. I'll see what it looks like in August, but for right now, I'll sell Matthews.
Yeah, this is interesting. We're opposite on this. I'm buying Matthews at $1,000. Like I don't like if you would have given me an opportunity to match that price. What was his name? Sorry, the
Tony. It was his name. His name is Tony.
Okay, Tony. If Tony would have said, yeah, like I kind of want to buy it for $1,000, but like if you will match it, like go ahead, you can take it. I would have bought it for $1,000. At $1,000, I think Auston Matthews PSA 10 is a buy. Because I think again, it's similar to the Connor McDavid. Like there's so much growth potential, and like, yes, are you buying it and are you going to be holding it for a little bit longer? Yes, you are. Like you're not buying it to flip in a month or two. You're buying it to hold it, and then next year when they get back to playing, he scores a hat trick in the first game, and all of a sudden it's a $1,500 card again.
Oh,
You know what
when
I
he
mean?
plays
So, like,
Montreal, oh, those Montreal fans are gonna be mad game one.
but like that's what I think I'd be doing with an Austin Matthews. Like $1,000, and I did this last year. I bought a few of them at $1,000 all day last summer, and I ended up making profits throughout the season. Was I sitting on $1,000 investment for a while? Yeah, I was. But at the end of the day, I turned $1,000 into 14, 15, $1,600 in a couple of months. And like at the end of the day, it's a hobby. So it's not, if I needed the money, maybe sure. But I think at $1,000, like that to me is almost the floor price for Austin Matthews. Like, so if that's what he's going for, I think it's a buy. I really, really do. I think there's a possibility he can end up with a C on his chest this summer. And if that's the case, man, people are going to be loving some AM 34, my brother.
No, I definitely agree. Matthews isn't going around anywhere soon.
So, Anthony, basically, moral of the story, if you get any more Austin Matthews and you're willing to take $1,000, I'll at your boy. I'll at your boy. I'll buy him off you for $1,000 all day long. $1,000 all day long. You let me know. I'll have the cash waiting. My guy.
I got these two waiting for you. I don't know if you want.
I got 2 9s already. I got 2 9s already. But if you get me a 10,
maybe I could grab a Sharpie and just write a 10 on it, and these will pretty much double in value. But I'll take a look at Austin Matthews this season, see what his market looks like. And although my answer is going to be sell before we move on to Connor Bedard, I'm only going to put that as my answer because I want to see what his market looks like. I want to see if it softens up a little bit.
Why would it soften? Like, why do you think it will? Like, I think he's one of the pillars of the hobby. So, like, I don't see it softening at all. Like, to me, 1,000, maybe it goes down to like 950, but like that's basement to me.
It's going to be one of those tough cards to get under 1,000. Like comps might show up for 875, comps might show up for 925, but you're also going to see comps under at 1,300 in the middle of July. So prices are going to vary throughout the summer. I feel like that $1,000 mark will be very safe to buy, very safe to sell. So if you can buy Austin Matthews Young Guns anywhere under $1,000 or slightly over, I feel like that's going to be the comfort spot for investors if you look in the longevity of holding an Austin Matthews Young Guns come the November Expo. I mean, by November, it's got to be like 1,200, hopefully.
It was selling for 1,500 in November at the November Expo all day long. Yep. So I think, if you're willing, if you're patient, like if you're a quick flipper, then obviously like there's not much that can happen for it to go up. But if you're willing to sit on it for 3 months, that's when it's a buy. So it really depends on who you are as a buyer, seller, investor, however you want to call yourself a flipper. If you're a quick flipper, maybe it's not a buy, but I don't mind buying and holding and sitting and then getting my money, 3-4 months from now. I don't mind doing that at all. So I think it's just a difference in mentality ultimately. Really quickly, I think we both are we both selling Evan Bouchard at $165 for PSA 10?
Yeah, I'm gonna sell. I think that conversation could be nice and short.
That's wild. Connor Bedard, PSA 10. Okay, PSA 10. $1,227 was the last sale since release day on March 18th. That is down 75% since release day. Since the start of the playoffs, it's down an additional 11% since release day. Connor Bedard at $1,227. We'll call it $1,200. Buy, sell, hold.
I mean, it's disappointing to see. Would you say 71% drop?
75% since release day. Dude, release day, these cards were selling for like $4 or $5 It made no sense. What do you mean? Yeah. Raws, they were going for $1,500. That we knew the market. Dude, the lowest sale for a raw, I checked it out yesterday. So the last sale was $450 for a raw, but there was a sale the day before that dipped below the 400 mark, $378. Really? There is a sale for $378 from a couple of days ago. And look, I think that makes sense. Like, there's no reason for Bedard to really be worth more than like an Austin Matthews Young Guns. Like, why would it be at this point?
I think the only reason would be because the boxes are so expensive. I had this conversation with Eric driving to the show yesterday. I was pretty much saying I don't
But
see.
no one's ripping these boxes.
I know, but it's almost like you can't buy them for less than, I think it's $300 is probably the floor. So I can't see a reason why Bedard should drop under that. But looking, I mean, 2020 vision, Bedard should be under $300 considering how many Young Guns are printed, how many are in good condition, bad condition. Like, it varies. The easiest answer for me to say right now is I'm going to sell Connor Bedard Young Guns PSA 10s. I said it right before the show. I said it seems cheap at $1,200, but if I were to come up to you at a show and say, and look, I'm going to give you this answer, and this is why I think they're cheap. If you were set up at a show and you had a Connor Bedard Young Guns PSA 10, knowing that there's so many printed and so many out there, and I came up to you and I said, hey, dude, let's do a straight swap. Austin Matthews Young Guns PSA 10 for a Connor Bedard Young Guns PSA 10. Which side of the deal would you rather have?
I'm making that trade all day. I'm taking the Austin Matthews all day long.
So that's why I think Connor Bedard shouldn't be in that $1,000 to, I believe you said $1,200 range. I think he's going to drop under it just because there's so many printed, so many are being sent back to people now through the off season, and by the start of October, come season time, I think he'll be at $800 to $900 Young Gun PSA 10. So he's a sell for me right now.
I agree. I've always my thought process was raw. This will probably be a $300 to $350 card come summer. And the PSA 10, yes, that range, $800 to $1,000 probably, but there's no reason for it to be worth more than an Austin Matthews, in my opinion. Yeah, Matthews might have a higher pop count, but Bedard's pop count's getting crazy high though. Like the gem rates aren't high, but the print run was higher. So you're seeing, some pretty, like, we're up over, I think 3-2 or I'll look it up right now.
We had this
well over 2,000.
So to save us some time, because I know we still need to get into a couple things. If you go back just 2 episodes, episode 2, I'm not sure what the minute mark is, but we did have a conversation about comparing the Connor McDavid and the Connor Bedard pop report. And we were talking about BGS, PSA 10, how they vary, and how, very surprisingly to some, the Connor Bedard Young Guns PSA 10 pop report is slightly catching up to a Connor McDavid PSA 10.
The total gem, there's 3,200 total gems split between Beckett, PSA, SGC, CG, CSG, and all of that. You've got 3,242 total gems at a 46% gem rate. So total pop, including all graded Bedards, you're looking at over 7,000. And look, we're only 2 months from release day. Like, this stuff still is being opened and sent in for grading like crazy. So yeah, I think that's going to be absurd. I thought at 1,200, I'm a sell on that for sure. Speaking of Bedard, let's get into a conversation about Connor Bedard's canvas, Young Guns canvas, which has been released. A picture of the canvas has been released, and this is what it looks like for those who are watching. And it is basically Connor Bedard, and he is holding, I think I could zoom in to show a little bit better, holding his own Young Guns. And that's essentially what they did. Like, Upper Deck decided they wanted to do something a little interesting with his Young Guns, and that's what they came up with. I texted you right away, and I basically said, oh, this is totally a card that I need to get. Like, I think this is awesome. I think this is sick. And you're like, dude, that is gross. I hate that. We're on complete opposite ends of this card, which I think is hilarious. Why don't you like it?
I mean, I think the first thing I said in response to you showing me this was, is this a joke? ? I'm pretty sure if you check your phone, that was my text that I sent you, because it looks like such a funky card. I mean, I will say, from the conversation we had just 4, 5, 6 days ago, the card's kind of growing on me a little bit, and I hate to go back on my word, but I just feel like they could have done such a better job with this. There were so many mock-ups that I saw. There was like that one, I wish I had it pulled up for you, but there was another photo that quote-unquote leaked that was going to be the Connor Bedard Young Guns canvas. I mean, after watching the interview with that individual from Upper Deck on the Hockey Card Gong Show podcast,
Billy Cilio.
Exactly.
On the Hockey Card Gong Show podcast. Great podcast.
Correct.
Love them.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out those boys for doing the great work over there. But he had a good explanation. He pretty much said, we want to do something just a little bit different. We want to be different in a sense. And I feel like they're doing that. They're doing that for sure.
Yeah, I think so. I totally think so. So yeah, for me, I'm on board. Like I would like, once this gets to a comfortable price point for me, I'm a buy on it. It's going to be insanely expensive right on release day. I'm not staying far away from it then, but at some point, if it dips to, I don't know, like what would be a comfortable price point where you'd be willing to pick this up at? I mean, if we're seeing them go for about 350 ish for a regular Young Guns, what are you looking at? Like 200, 250 for the canvas?
Yeah, probably like two. I'd say like 65% of whatever a regular Young Guns goes for. I feel like that's a fair assessment. I don't know. I just feel like it's a clean photo where you can see the logo, you could see his face. He has that little smile, and people love like a nice photo of a card where you can clearly see the picture of the person. Like we've seen people talk about the Lafreniere Young Guns. There was so much pushback on that, so much pushback that they actually had to release another card. So I think people over time will start to enjoy the look of this card just because it is, in a sense, different, which was the goal of the entire project.
Yeah. So I'm a fan. You're on the fence, but sounds like you might be leaning towards the dark side.
We'll see.
We'll see. I'm excited for it. It sounds like actually I did a little bit of looking into it. Hobby Box pricing is going for $229 Canadian right now for extended, which this is going to be in extended. Also, we had that conversation a couple weeks ago about how they might hold out Fantilli. Incorrect. Fantilli is going to be in there along with Logan Cooley, and then Connor Bedard will also be another one of the big chases, obviously, for his Young Guns canvas. So, it's going to be a decent product, and $229, it's still more expensive than what you typically are paying. Like the 160-ish mark is usually what you're paying for hobby boxes for series 1 and 2. But it's a lot less than the 350, 400 that they got to in the first month or so that series 2 was out. So it is actually a good thing to see hobby box pricing starting to go down a bit. And I will say, $229 is what it's available for at Klutz and Chara. It's actually cheaper if you get it from David Adams. They're selling it for $149 in the States, $149 US, which comes out to $203 Canadian. So, I mean, you might have to deal with duty. I actually don't know what that conversion would be. But if you could drive over, I live in Niagara Falls, I could drive over and pick it up from David Adams there. That might be a better, I could save $30.
I mean, not even talking about one. Like if you pick up a case and they're priced that way, $20, what, 12? I think 12 hobby box to a case. That's almost $240 Canadian that you're saving. Probably spending an extra $30-$40 on gas. I mean, that's a $200 difference right there when you are spending money on exactly.
Yeah, it's like a free box. Yeah. All right. I wanted to get into the GameStop thing, but I don't know if we really got much time to get into it. But I do think it's interesting. Just really quickly, GameStop, which is, I guess, formerly EB Games here up in Canada, they're getting into the sports card and TCG market, where it's kind of a trial basis right now, I think, only in certain states, but they're now buying your sports cards and your Pokemon and TCG cards. And it seems like they're going to be looking to resell them as singles on their site. Basically, I think, it's kind of smart, I guess. The physical sales of video games are definitely going down with a lot of digital copies being downloaded nowadays. Their sales are plummeting, which is why you saw the whole GameStonk thing happen a couple of years ago, people shorting it. But this seems like a way to maybe offset some of that revenue. It looks like they're going to try and get into the sports card flipping game. Like, what do you make of this?
I mean, I still have so many questions about it. How can how do they make the judgment call at what to buy the Young Guns? How will it work? I'm sorry, all this Young Guns stuff, and all they do is buy sports cards, and TCG, I believe, right?
And TCG, yeah, and only graded. So graded PSA graded. I think it's only PSA too.
Okay, so that's where what I wanted to say is a question that I had, because I couldn't imagine bringing a raw card in to someone that wasn't, knowledgeable about sports cards, and then them making a judgment call based on the condition, the card itself. You know what I mean? At least they can train their employees to, greet someone that. I have this random Matthew Barzal card, but I need a graded one. Juracek, Young Guns, PSA 8. They're able to look it up on eBay, say, okay, you know what? This card comps at $17.
That's not even what they're doing. Like, you're making it more complicated. I know.
Really?
Like, I watched a couple videos about how it's done. So they have a checklist, right? If you look on the back of your card, there's a barcode, right? So they scan that, right? So that barcode pops up on their screen, and it literally just the picture shows up and whatnot. And then what happens is the screen will say, buy for this much, or you could sell it for this much cash or this much in store credit. And it just tells you, like, this is it, take it or leave it. So everything, like, I don't know, obviously I don't know what their algorithm is to find out what the prices are, but it just tells you, like, these people are robots. They're just scanning cards and they're like, well, the computer says that they're willing to give you this much for it, take it or leave it. That's basically the process right now.
I'd love to actually go into a GameStop and be like, look,
so it's not in Canada. It's not in Canada yet. So it is in New York. Okay. If we want to pop down to New York, which ain't far from us,
cool.
We could go and check it out. I think it kind of be cool.
I'd love to even go and be like, look, I'm not even interested in selling the card. I just want to see the process. At the end of the day, in short, let's end this conversation, because I don't want the same story happening with my sports cards for what they did when I was 7 years old trying to sell my video games, my $100 video game, and they offered me $4 and a high five and a kick out the door. So GameStop, when I was 7 years old, you did me dirty. I won't forget it.
I know. And from what I've seen, I've watched a few videos of like people who've tried this, and they put it up on YouTube, and they've made shorts of it and stuff on TikTok and whatnot. Really, if it's like a low pop card and there's not many sales on it, they're not even going to offer you anything for it.
Yeah.
So it's really, I think, for cards that are super liquid and there's a lot of sales on it and a lot of data, so that they're able to come up with a number, whether it's, 50, 60, 65, 70% comp. That's basically what it is. And obviously, if you take store credit, you get more percentage. If you take cash, you get less percentage. But I do think that's interesting. Just like that, GameStop sees flipping sports cards as a viable, new stream of revenue. Like, I do think that is probably a good sign that others believe that the hobby is healthy and growing. And to me, I think that's pretty good.
Oh, sorry.
No? Nothing?
No, I no, I'm totally good. I mean, yeah, I agree. I mean, just I want to see what the experience is like first. I want to go in there. I want to see what they offer. I want to know what percentage they buy at, because
look it up on YouTube. Look it up on YouTube. There's a lot of people who've done it, and
I'll have to take a look after, because I couldn't imagine them doing anything besides, a percentage of what the comps are doing. And if you're going to tell me, like, okay, they're going to buy at 40%, sell at 80%, and obviously they need to make their profit themselves. It's just, I couldn't imagine going in there, with a Matthews PSA 10, like we talked about, $1,000 card comps at $1,000, and then they offer you $400 for it, or even $600, or even $800, right? Like, it just wouldn't make sense. I don't know how viable it will be and how long it will be sustainable for, but hey, hobby's growing.
Here's what would worry me: stolen cards. Like, you steal a bunch of slabs and you just show up and you take whatever you can.
That's true.
That would be the worry that I wonder, like, what the policy is there. If like that has,
I mean,
you know what I mean? Like, what if someone swiped your Matthews PSA 10 off your table yesterday in Hamilton, went down to Buffalo and said, hey, willing to do this, willing to sell this, and they're like, we'll give you $650 for it. Yep, sure. Why do they care? They have it for free. It's a free $650. So that's my concern. Like, I wonder if what the process is to negate that stolen cards.
I mean, I don't think there's going to be too much to it. Off the top of my head right now, I don't have any positive way to stop it. I don't really have an idea how you would or how you would know. The only thing that kind of pops into my mind is serial number cards being blocked. And you see PSA do it a lot with, higher end cards where if a card is.
You would have to recognize it and you would have to make sure that you make that like call into PSA and that they do it quick because you're going straight from the show to GameStop, and that's like a 5-minute drive, like just GameStops all around the US, right?
Yeah.
Like, so that's the only thing is eventually, like I'm sure that is a process where if you have a stolen card from PSA, you can alert it. So if it goes to scan it, it shows up stolen card. Of course, I think that's possible. But is it going to happen quick enough to, what I mean?
Probably
I don't know.
Not.
That was the kind of the one thing that went through my mind. I was like, I don't know how, like that could just open up a can of worms. But regardless, I still think that it's interesting that GameStop is kind of entering the hobby, and I think that just speaks to the growth. Speaking of growth, really quickly, I just saw this graphic kind of pop across my Twitter timeline of ESPN. PR and the 2024 NHL playoffs on ESPN up 15% from last year, or the second round. The second round's up 15% from last year. So seeing some growth down in the States. That's good for the hobby. That's really good for the hobby. 15% growth out of that 15%. If only half of them, are hockey card collectors or become hockey card collectors, it's an extra 7%. That are joining the hobby.
For sure. I mean, even less than that, call it like 1% too, because think about how many people watch these games. Like that 15% must be reflected by what, multi-million viewers. I mean, we've seen that huge growth come from ESPN joining the NHL scene. And even, I don't know how much of a Pat McAfee guy you are, or if you ever watched some of his things, but he always shouts out the NHL. He always does little segments. He even had Swayman on board doing an interview, I think before or right after Game 7.
Biz has been on, Pat Maroon's been on, Messier,
Elliot Friedman's been on. So they've definitely helped the NHL scene, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Show and tell time. Let's try and wrap this up. Quick times. Why don't you go ahead and show kind of what you picked up this week, whether it was, on your own dealings or, like we mentioned, we were both at the Hamilton show yesterday. Anything that you want to show, some of your top pickups?
Yeah, so this is what I got. So I picked up some other stuff, but this is the main, the meat and potatoes to the pickup. So like I already showed, we got the Connor McDavid Young Guns Raw. I've been so busy, I haven't even taken it out of the case. So after this episode, I'll take a look at everything because I haven't even looked at the condition of anything too much just yet, but take a look at this one afterwards, and it looked pretty good off first sight. So like we said, had that conversation. Lucas Reichel, a little bit of a cheaper play. I'll see if he can grab himself a spot on Bedard's line next year. So this was $40, so pretty decent pickup. Next up, Future Watch, Clayton Keller, a guy that I picked up in fantasy last year, led my team in points, and even for $50, it was a no-brainer. Looking at these two cards, you're going to tell me that Reichel's 40 and then Clayton Keller's $50. So we'll see what he does in Utah, but I'm definitely looking forward to owning more Clayton Keller stuff in the future.
Do you think that Coyotes cards might be a buy with them entering a completely new market?
I mean, you know me, dude. I love the Coyotes players. I like Vejmelka. I like Gunther. I like Keller.
Gunther's killing it at the World Championships.
Yeah.
Oh, my boy also is crushing it right now. Dylan Cousins leading the tournament with 8 goals. There's your boy Gunther.
Yep.
Yeah. He's crushing it. Yep. Anything else?
I got 2 Carey Price Young Guns. Going to bring these to Montreal. I put a 210 sticker on it just because I was set up. So we'll see what that looks like if people still show him some hobby love. And then to cap it off, little Vasilevsky Raw Young Guns. Picked it for $150. So we'll see what he has in store for him come September. But those are my pickups. Some good, decent stuff. I'll see what the condition of some look like, and maybe pop some in my next PSA grading pile.
Very nice. Very nice. I made a couple. there was a scumbag that was being really difficult, but I ended up, getting a jambalaya Austin Matthews off of him. So
Oh,
I did get an Austin Matthews jambalaya. Oh, this guy Anthony.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, I mean, he's being really difficult, to be honest with you. Really, really difficult. I almost walked away. I was really, really embarrassed. Or he should have been embarrassed the way that he was acting, if you ask me. But no, yeah, Anthony was set up at the show, and I was like, funny enough, I went to buy this card off of another dealer who sold it to Anthony apparently for cheaper than I offered him. And Anth was like solid and was like, I mean, I'll give it to you for like $10 more than I paid. I make $10. You save $10 what you were willing to offer, and it's a win-win. So I did. I bought it, and I was happy with it. So that was my bigger purchase, I guess, at the show yesterday. I did go dollar bin hunting. I'm not going to show all of the cards, but this is the stack of literally just Young Guns that I picked up, and there is some goodies like these. Every card was $1. And there was some good stuff in here. Like I'm talking Caden Primo, Young Guns, Stuart Skinner, Young Guns, Connor Ingram. There was a Capo Caco Young Guns, which I remember paying like $40 for back in the day. I got it for $1. It was insane. And a bunch of other good stuff like Jaeger Sharangovich. There was what was the other one that was actually decent? Jesper Bratt, Noah Dobson, Jesper Bratt, Young Guns Canvas. So that was really cool. And then a bunch of like old football rookie autos and just like honestly, just like random stuff that I'm just going to put in my boxes, my value boxes, and just, buy them for $1, try and see if I can sell them for $2, basically. But a bunch of like rookie autos and, some players that I thought were kind of funny. Some old,
I don't remember a lot of the football players, but there was like a ton of, I wish you had the time to like show them all, but there was like a lot of rookie autos, patches, just like old football that I think, dude, if you took the time to throw it on
Kellen Moore, Prism
rookie audio. Yeah. I remember that.
$1. I was like,
that was a crazy one.
Yeah, that was great. But earlier in the week, I made a pretty sizable trade. I don't know how I did on it, to be honest with you. Like I really took a chance, a leap of faith. I don't know how I'm going to sell what I got, but I thought I got good value for it. I bought the Tim Hortons complete master set, which includes like all the ice gems, all the symmetry cards, like literally everything.
Like,
pardon?
That sounds hard to pull. Like some of like the ice gems.
Very hard to pull. I mean, they're like $30 to $40 cards a piece for these ice gems.
It's not like you traded for just like the base full set of the Tim Hortons. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I traded for everything, along with a Connor McDavid marquee rookie, a white marquee rookie. What else did I get? There was something else. Oh, and Series 1 Young Guns, the entire Series 1 Young Guns with like Matthew Nyes, Luke Hughes, Brock Faber. So that was kind of the deal that I made. I did give up, like you got to give to get, and I gave up some pretty solid players. I gave up, I think, a Nylander BGS 9.5. I gave up a Pedersen PSA 10 and a Rantanen PSA 9 Young Guns. So I did give up some good players, but ultimately I think what I can, if I piece out what I've got, I think I'll make a good return on mine there. So it's a bit of a gamble, I guess, to make that trade. I don't know. Let me know down in the comment section below, or if anyone's looking for a Tim Hortons master set. I do have one. If you're looking, we'll see. I'm gonna bring it to the show on Sunday that I'm going to in St. Catharines, the MNL show at the Holiday Inn, running from 9:30 till. Was it 2:30? I don't know. One of the
I think it's like 2:33 in that.
Yeah, I think like 2 or 2:30. You're going to Montreal for the Montreal Expo this weekend.
Yeah.
So that'll be good. What do you bring in? What's your game plan?
My game plan, I mean, I didn't really think too much about it because I just kind of want to go in with an open mindset. I kind of want to bring cash in an empty, not suitcase, an empty briefcase with my cards because
slab case.
I don't want to focus too much on bringing, cards that, like I just said, I just brought, like, besides Montreal Canadiens players, I have a little box put aside that I will walk around with and try and sell some Montreal stuff. Like, I wish I brought it down actually, but Suzuki Auto, Suzuki Young Guns, Caulfield Young Guns, Slavkovsky Young Guns, like little short print, stuff where I might be able to get $15 compared to $5 in Toronto. So I'll see what that looks like. But I feel like the game plan of walking in, buying raw Young Guns that I could grade, raw future watches is always on my mind. And I feel like if I'm able to do that successfully in Montreal, going there will be worth it for me.
So you're buying. This is a work trip. You're going to buy on this
We're
trip.
Going to buy. It's a Belichick business trip. Shout out my roommate Davis from university. Belichick business trip, as he would say.
Attaboy. We'll reconvene next week and you can show us what you picked up at that point. But that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I got through it. I think I did okay. There was a couple times I had to pause, cough, or whatever, but we got it through it. I'd like to thank everyone for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe right here on YouTube. Eventually, we do plan to get going audio-wise for you on the go listeners. But just a reminder that we are a weekly podcast diving deep into the world of hockey cards, buying, selling, flipping, and investing. We'll be back with another episode for you guys next Wednesday. This is the Hockey Card Haven Podcast.